Hello, Mark Red Larson here for the Dreamcatcher podcast. Thanks for joining us. My guest is Liz Schuler. How are you doing, Liz?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm actually at a coffee house having some coffee. It's a beautiful day here. Actually, it is really beautiful for Nebraska. The wind's not blowing, and it's cool temperatures, so not too bad. So Liz, where are you located at?
Right now, I am in Belgium.
Belgium. Okay. So, are you
Yep.
from there originally?
No, so I'm originally from Wyoming,
Okay.
and I've moved a few times now. We moved
Uh huh.
to Jordan and then to China and now to Belgium. So,
Wow. So what took you
yeah.
for how did that all occur, or why did that all occur?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. So, I was working as a private practice therapist in Wyoming, Colorado, and my partner was
Okay.
working as a brewer in Wyoming. And he got a job offer in Jordan to brew beer in the Middle East. And at first he thought it was a scam, but eventually he was like, "Oh, I know people who know this guy that's offering the job." So we're like,
Right.
"Okay, we might as well try it."
Yeah.
So we
You
flew
never
over there,
know.
and yeah, he started working as a brewer in the Middle East, and I started working as an international school counselor, which is what took us to China. And then
Okay.
we were there
Wow.
during COVID. We
Oh
just hit
wow.
COVID.
Lucky you.
Yeah,
So how was
right.
China during COVID?
It was actually pretty fine. I mean, the first 6 months, I would say, were a little bit crazy and a little bit difficult just because everybody was,
Okay.
trying to figure out what was going on. And then after that, it was fine. There was just contact tracing and local quarantine. And then the last 6 months was a little bit crazy, and they got really happy with the testing, and we were doing, almost daily testing. So that was a little bit,
Wow.
a
That's a
little bit
lot of
weird.
testing.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
is.
Yeah, especially when you're working in a school with students.
I mean, gosh, I don't know how you did that. I would think that'd be all you get done is testing. So, I mean, so
They
was
were
China
really
like you?
efficient.
Really? Okay. Well, that part was good. But so
Yeah.
was China like you thought it would be like?
It was and it wasn't. We didn't get to do a lot of travel around China either, just because of the way that the quarantine measures worked. So, if you went to another
Okay.
city and ended up with a close contact, you would have to stay in that city for a quarantine, which meant you couldn't go home and you couldn't go back to
Okay.
work. And so it was a little bit difficult to travel inside of China. But otherwise, it was nice. We enjoyed it. It was a lot of mega cities, right? We could drive for 2 hours
Yeah.
and still be in the same city.
Wow. I
Mhm.
mean that I I I don't know. China intrigues me, but I just wonder about
Yeah.
going there. So okay. So what got you to Belgium then from China?
Yeah, so my partner decided he wanted to go back to school, and he has family here. So his family split
Okay.
in right after World War One. Half of them went to
Oh
Wyoming and
wow.
half of them stayed here. Yep. So
Okay.
he has family he's in touch with here still. And the school here is really, really good for what he wants to do. So, and much, much
Very good.
cheaper than the US.
I bet that's true too. No, I bet that
Hmm.
definitely is. So you said with the counselor, how did you get into that profession?
I always was kind of the healer, right? Even when I was little,
Okay.
I was always rescuing animals, always doing things to help heal other people and things, right? And I thought I wanted to be a vet for a really long time. And then I
Cool.
had one of my first animals die. And I was like, I can't do that as a job. I'm not going to be
Yeah,
able
that
to
would be
deal with that.
tough. Yeah, I can
Yeah,
definitely
day
understand
in and
that.
day out.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I was like, okay, well, if I can't help heal animals, how do I help heal people?
Yep.
And in high school, all of my friends, would come to me and talk about their problems and ask for
Right.
advice. And I was sort of the resident therapist. So
Okay.
I was like, well, I might as well just do that.
And that's great. I mean, when it kind of shows you, and resonates. I mean, that is So is that what, are you doing that also in Belgium where you're at too?
Not really. So I did the therapist thing for about 10 years.
Okay.
And the further I got into it and the more I worked with people, the more I realized that like the diagnosis and the insurance and all of the medical model telling people that
Yeah.
there was something wrong with them and putting us into like the mentally ill and the mentally healthy, it doesn't, it's not true, right? It's just
Yeah.
not how people work. And so I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. So when my partner was like, well, I want to go back to school, I was like, okay, well, I want to do something different too.
There you go. Sounds totally
Yep.
fair.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a lateral move. So I'm not
Okay.
doing any sort of psychotherapy or treating any mental illness, but I am still
Okay.
doing what is considered like health and wellness coaching here in Belgium. That's what my
Okay.
business technically is
Okay.
legally.
Okay.
But what I do is I work with psychedelics now. So I
Okay.
help prepare people and help them integrate their psychedelic experiences.
Very awesome.
Yeah,
And psychedelics is definitely losing its where people, it's like, oh, you wouldn't want, it's kind of in the back, it's definitely come to the
yeah.
forefront, definitely a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think like a lot of things, I think there's a lot of things that we have been that we were told that were no good that actually were a lot of help, and the stigma I
Yep.
think is kind of going definitely away from it. So what directed you
Yeah.
towards psychedelics?
Yeah. So I've been doing yoga and meditation for like, gosh, 20 years now.
Okay,
um,
awesome.
makes me seem old, but yeah. And I was doing it for my own, physical and mental well-being. I have some autoimmune issues and things like that, and it was really, really helpful for me. So I am actually also a yoga teacher and yoga therapist, and I did that kind of
Okay,
alongside my therapy stuff. But it's hard to do both together, right?
do that.
So I have been able to now that I'm not doing the mental health stuff, I can use that in the psychedelics to help integrate.
Okay,
And so being in that alternative, health space, I guess, alternative and complementary therapies, whatever you want
right,
to
right,
call it, psychedelics is, like you said, like becoming really, really popular.
very
And
much,
as I
yes.
was deciding on what I wanted to do, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes it, instead of
Yes,
taking an antidepressant for the rest of your life, maybe you can
yes,
try taking psilocybin 3 times and see if that can help resolve your issues, right?
exactly. Yeah, much better
Uh-huh.
than taking something. And yeah, I think that's a win-win. That definitely is if you can get off the antidepressants and stuff like that. Because most people that I know that take them don't like them anyway, the antidepressant pills. So and then just don't take them
Yeah,
because they don't like it. So
right.
so
And there are a lot of like long-term effects that, people don't talk about even after stopping things
oh
like
really?
antidepressants. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And that is what is really the driving force for me in saying, like, if you take antidepressants and they help you, like, great, keep doing that, right? But
okay,
there are a
right.
lot of people that are taking antidepressants that they're just doing it because there isn't anything else,
Yes,
right?
they
And so they're
exactly.
like,
Yes, yes.
yeah. And the thing is, there are other things, there are other alternatives that,
Yep.
maybe will be more helpful for you and less harmful in the long term.
And yes, yeah, it is. Because I mean, there seems like there's a lot of depression anyway, and that the first thing they do is throw the pills at you, and then if they don't like it, then where are they at again? They still haven't had a solution. So I think that, so.
Right.
How do you learn about psychedelics? How do you learn how to do what you do with them?
Yeah, so I've always kind of known about psychedelics. My dad's
Okay,
a hippie, right?
okay, hey,
So
that's awesome.
yeah. So he was always, really open about, oh, I've taken LSD and this is what it's like, or oh,
Right.
when I was younger we did mushrooms and this is what it's like. So it's always been kind of like there in my
Hmm.
life, but because it's illegal and because I went into this very regulated profession, it was kind
Right.
of like, got to stay hands off with that kind of stuff.
Right.
And as
Right.
soon as I decided that I was going to move away from that, it kind of like came back into my life, like, oh, there's so much research. And I was doing,
Yep.
during COVID, I was doing
Uh-huh.
my doctorate in clinical
Okay.
psychology. And
Okay.
of course, I was moving towards some of those more mind body classes and
Right.
things that are
Sure.
more holistic. And in all of that research and all of that work, psychedelics just kept popping up and popping up and popping up. And I was like, well, if
Hmm.
they're keeping, it keeps coming to me. Maybe
Yeah. There's a
I
reason
should
why.
really look into
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I ended up doing my doctoral thesis on psychedelics and psychedelic healing.
Wow.
And yeah, and from there it was like, yeah, this is what I need to be doing.
You knew you'd found. Yeah, this is it. Yes, I know how that feeling is. So, I mean
Yeah.
that. So in Belgium, is it the stigma like it is in the United States with psychedelics?
No. So it's technically illegal here, right?
Okay.
But in the Netherlands, which is right next door and very close
Okay.
culturally to the Flanders part of the
Okay.
Dutch speaking part of Belgium, truffles, so psilocybin truffles are legal, cannabis is legal. There are a lot of retreat centers in the Netherlands. And so
Really?
it's
Okay.
actually very, very easy to just order things online from the Netherlands and
Okay.
get them in Belgium.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. No, I mean that just there's so many things. Well, one thing in the United States is so much driven by the pharmaceutical industries. You know, they want to have you on their pills anyway. So if there's anything else out there, they don't want you to know about it because they want them to be a lifetime customer. So
Right.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
And I think that's
and how
part of
many?
the stigma.
But
Sorry, I just think that's part of the stigma in the States is that we have, the opioid epidemic and a whole bunch of
yes,
pharmaceutical issues that are going on. And so anybody who's talking about other drugs, right? People are like,
yeah,
whoa, whoa, drugs. Drugs are bad.
yeah. Just they don't realize that the drugs that a lot of the ones are on are bad too. Just even if they're coming from and but they don't
Right.
usually see it that way. They just some of these people are willing to take it for the rest of their life, and a lot of them. I mean, my wife and I both have dealt with older people, and it's like, oh, well, I'm on like 20, 21 pills, and it's like, what don't you see wrong with that? And the interactions that there would be, but they just take it religiously because they've been told by their doctor and and that's why I think talking about catching your dreams. One thing, if you're not at your best, you're not going to catch your dreams, and it's past
Right.
time. I'm not saying there aren't some pharmaceutical and just there are medicines that are out there that are good, but I
Right.
think we need to look at the alternatives. I think it's past time. I think
Mm-hmm.
my generation and younger definitely don't see medicine the same way as some of the older people. So that's why I'm intrigued by
Right.
this. Very intrigued. So how about I mean your husband, spouse, or
Yep.
your partner? I mean, what does he think of all this?
He's very, very supportive. So
Okay,
he's a little bit more in the like true agnostic, right?
okay,
Um, as long as it's not hurting anybody and I'm happy, he's happy. we're
okay.
we're pretty good partners. We support
That,
each other. Um,
that's very good.
he hasn't ever used anything like psilocybin, but there are
Okay,
other like herbs and psychoactive things that he's tried. He sometimes uses kanna for
okay.
like stress, which
Oh,
is
really?
a
Okay,
South African. Yeah, it's a South African herb, and people have been calling it nature's MDMA.
interesting. No,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I think there's actually a solution in nature, for everything that people are ailed by. We
Mm-hmm.
just got to find it, and have people like you that are bring it
Right.
to our awareness. So, I mean,
Right. Yeah.
this is so cool. But so you said you did the coaching. How do you help people with this? I mean, they come to you then and then say, I have this problem or
Yeah. So a lot of people come to me after they've already had a psychedelic experience because they
okay.
realize, oh, shoot, a lot of stuff came up for me and I
Oh
need to
yeah,
be able to process this and I can't do it myself.
I can
Right.
understand that.
Right. But what I'm hoping and what I think a lot of people in the industry are hoping for is that people can start to do really comprehensive prep before having a psychedelic experience, because that's a
Okay.
big part of
Okay.
the actual integration and getting the benefits. So having good preparation, figuring out what substance is going to be best for you, the safety issues, because some
Yeah.
substances have, physiological issues that just are
Right.
not going to
Right.
mesh with your body,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that you are in the right mindset and that you have the right setting for when you're on your trip,
Yes.
right? All of that is really, really important for you to be able to have a beneficial trip. Now,
Okay.
I'm not
And
going
that
to say
makes sense.
good trip or
Yep.
bad trip, because
Right.
that's
Right.
gotten a little
Yep.
bit of a stigma.
Yep.
Good trips, beneficial trips, can be very, very challenging. You can have a
Okay.
lot of, very difficult, very challenging stuff come up, but that doesn't mean that it isn't helpful. So,
Okay. That's interesting. That is so interesting. I mean, so you get back to Cody, Wyoming then?
not very often. We were shut in to China. The border was closed for,
Okay.
3.5 years. And then we moved to Belgium, and now everybody's coming here
Oh, that,
to see
I don't
us.
understand that. So I was just wondering if you got back to Wyoming. Do you talk about this when you get back to Wyoming? And I was just wondering their response to this. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in Wyoming, again, they're reticent just because there's a lot of meth in Wyoming. There's a lot of the opioid issues in
Really?
Wyoming.
Mm.
And yeah, with that
That's,
I-80 corridor, it's
yeah,
difficult.
that I
And
can
so
definitely.
I think that a lot of people hear drugs and illegal drugs and
Yep.
just, they're like, no,
Yeah,
they're bad.
immediately.
There's nothing good about that. Mm-hmm.
No.
So I think educating people is something that has been part of what I do when I talk to people about what I'm doing and why
Sure.
I'm doing it, and letting them realize that, yes, it's a drug, it's a substance,
Right.
but you're not using it the same way that you would use an opioid. You're not using it the same way that, you're going to use meth. It's
Yes.
helpful to heal. It's helpful to move forward in your life. It's helpful to even just find some clarity.
Yeah. And I could see this because I mean, when the other's done, it's just done behind the scenes, and here you're bringing it to the forefront, and that's a lot different than trying to do it behind the scenes, and I think that's
Right.
that and a lot of other things, natural health. They always, a lot of people put that as like, no, I'm not going to do that. That just, and I think
Right.
that is because I could only imagine what Nebraska, well, conservative, and I'm sure Cody's at least as conservative as, and probably a lot of cowboys and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that too, I would guess. And
Yep.
yeah, because I mean, in Nebraska, that would be. It's like you did a podcast on what, and it's just like, yep. So that I want to bring everything to the forefront. If one thing, if it's not discussed,
Right.
I mean, where do you ever go forward on it then? So it just stays in the background.
Exactly.
And so, where do
Yep.
you hope to take this in like 5 years? I mean, with what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I've always had sort of a
Right.
dream of having like a worker co-op where it's not just me, but it's a
Okay.
bunch of different providers providing different modalities of healing. So massage therapy is really, really
Nice.
helpful.
Oh yes, yes.
Yoga, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a yoga
Yep.
therapist, so obviously I'm into
Yep.
yoga.
Yep.
Very, very helpful. Things like Reiki.
Oh yeah, I have a friend that does that in
You
North Carolina. Yes. So.
know, functional medicine
Mm-hmm.
practitioners, right? Just a
Yep.
multidisciplinary sort of worker co-op where people can
Mm-hmm.
come and heal and
So.
have everything that they need right there, so that they don't have to go different places. Whether or not that'll happen in 5 years, I'm not sure, but it's a dream.
And you got to go towards that direction. You don't know until you go towards that.
Yep.
So, yeah, you would be. I should introduce you to my friend in North Carolina. I think you two would have a lot in common to talk about. And well, I did water yoga
Yeah.
last year. I mean, does that count?
Oh, nice.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that was the kill me yoga. Oh my gosh, I was on the board and twice I about killed myself. One time the board went across my chest and I cut, and it was at a
Yeah.
Y, and they thought maybe I killed myself. But that was so much fun though. Once I got started and able to do that, I mean, it's like and then it was an hour long thing, and I was in like 5 minutes in. It's like I'm gonna die here. So, but it was so much fun. Um, I just, and that's another thing. I think so many people, yoga, and that's always been kind of like, that's what those people do. And I think, really people need to try it. And that's, I think, is a bad thing about this, and maybe other parts of the United States, preconceived. It's like, I don't do that, and they don't try it. And I think this, with what you're doing, break down the barriers on that. So I have to ask. I always ask in the Dreamcatcher podcast, what were your dreams when you were growing up? What did you want to do when you grew up?
I think we kind of covered that. I really wanted to be a vet when I was little.
So that was right away then. That's pretty good then.
Yeah. I was always drawn to the animals.
Were you around animals growing up?
Yeah, so living in Cody, I lived on like a 25-acre plot of land, and
nice.
It was inherited, so we were lucky to have it. But we grew up poor, and so I ended up doing a lot of like subsistence hunting and those sorts of things to make sure that we had enough food for the year. And so having dogs, having horses, those sorts of things, it was they were there to work, but I was also always around them. So
yeah, and there's something about horses. Well, like I think I told you the other day, my sister says they're big cats. They can be definitely one thing with a horse with the ears. So, but no, I think so. Do you have any animals around where you're at there?
I have 2 cats. We had a greyhound, that retired racing greyhound that we took from the U.S. to Jordan to China before he passed.
A well-traveled greyhound.
Well-traveled, yes. He was great. Yeah, and then when he passed, we adopted 2 Chinese street cats, and they came with us.
Nice. And I love cats too. And in fact, I was just talking to a gal a little bit ago about all her cats. I mean, animals are so good, and animals we don't give animals, I don't think, enough credit either. It's amazing how much they may not be able to speak, but they can speak. And
definitely,
I think that is very cool too. So do you have a podcast?
I don't have a podcast. The closest thing I have to it is that I record meditations and talks for Insight Timer.
Okay. So how do people find that? Is there a place that they can find that, what you do there?
Yeah, it's a meditation app. And it has a lot of free talks and meditations. And then they also have a premium version where you can take like audio courses and things like that. I think it's really like $60 a year. Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, for a year, that is really reasonable. So we need to definitely share that in the show notes then too. So that is so.
Okay.
So, would you ever want to do like public speaking or writing a book?
Public speaking is one of my fears. Like, I've gotten better at it as, I've had to. But every time, like, the yoga and the meditation has really helped. So I'm able to get up there and I'm able to speak and I'm able to do my thing. And then as soon as I get off the stage, my hands are like.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that would be me if I got off the stage before I passed out. So, I mean, although I think maybe once I got up there, you wouldn't be able to shut me up. I mean, it'd be just like, okay, that's enough. Get him off there. But so, I mean, would you want to? I mean, would like a TEDx talk or something like this? This would be an interesting subject on a TEDx.
It would be, but I don't think I'm the right person for this. No, like maybe, yeah. But writing a book is probably something that's more down my alley. I enjoy writing, and I think I could probably cobble together a book at some point.
Cool. That's very cool. So we talked about, I mean, with your travels, do you guys get to travel much now where you're at now, or do you travel much from Belgium?
Right now, we're not traveling very much just because my partner's in school. It's, it's a lot. He's busy. It's it's about 70 hours a week, I would say, for him right now.
Gosh.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
lot.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, but before China, we did a
Hmm.
lot of traveling. Um,
Okay.
in Jordan, there was Ryanair, so you could get, cheap flights, €20 to anywhere in Europe,
So
really.
it was really good.
Um, yep, Europe is nice with Ryanair. You can get some pretty good
Oh,
deals
was
flying
Jordan
places.
like you thought it would be? I mean,
Was it like I thought it would?
maybe you
Well,
didn't have any
what?
preconceived on that.
Right. The only thing I knew about Jordan was Petra because I watched a lot of history documentaries. So I was like, oh, it's gonna be
Okay.
beautiful, and it was. It was very beautiful.
Okay.
There are a lot of ancient ruins, so probably some of the best Roman ruins outside of Italy, honestly.
Really?
Uh, mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
interesting. Would have never guessed that.
yeah,
Okay.
I know. Yeah, so it's because it's just desert, right? So they've just been covered
Right.
in sand and pretty well preserved. So lots of cool like Roman ruins, Byzantine ruins, the Nabateans in Petra.
Okay.
And then there's a lot more nature. Like there isn't a lot of wildlife, but there's a lot
Okay.
of nature in Jordan.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that then? With just a lot of.
So you can go to the desert like Wadi Rum and be
Okay.
out in the desert and go hiking or ride a camel or whatever it is out there, sleep under the stars. You can go
Ah,
up
that'd
into
be
the yeah, you can go up into the north of the country and it's a little more green, a little more lush, and you can do hiking up there. And you can go to the
nice.
Dead Sea, and there are canyons, they call them wadis, that you can hike up
Okay.
from the Dead Sea. It's just there's a lot of cool nature that, you wouldn't think of.
No, I wouldn't. What you said about Jordan, I wouldn't have guessed any of that. I mean, well, the best education is, I mean, traveling. I mean, it's just good actually going there and seeing it. So, I mean, so where's some
Mm-hmm.
places that you would still like to travel to?
Oh my gosh, I have a list. I
Yeah,
think,
me too.
yeah, I think right now I would really like to get down to South Africa. I would like to swim with the sharks at some point.
Swim with sharks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Is that a
I'm
cage?
a little bit of a risk taker.
I would think so. I would make sure that. Wow. But oh wow. So where? I mean, that would be interesting. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's the way to do it. That's like you just got. So what? Why do you want to do that? I mean,
I just, again, nature, I've got a tree back here. I
yeah,
love
which I love your
trees. I
tree.
love animals. Thank you. Nature is just something that is healing for me, and I think it's healing for a lot of us. It's
I
it's
think so
part of
too.
us. We're part of nature, and
Yep.
so the more I can be in nature and experience the natural world, I think the better my life is. So that's what we do usually when we travel. We just try and find the
Yep.
coolest like natural stuff to do.
And I'm with you. I mean, that's just there's a lot of places that are pretty quiet, and that's why I go on my walks and just I'm with
Mhm.
nature and it's just everybody's like, isn't that boring? It's like it's anything but boring. So I mean, it's just I can't explain it, but I look forward to it. And usually I have there's usually animals that kind of join me. I had a few years ago, I had a possum join
Mhm.
me on a walk, rubbed against my leg, and they went with me for the walk and looked at me back and it's
There you
like, are you
go.
going to hurry up? So, but that people said, do you meditate? And it's like that is kind of my meditation. I just
Hmm.
I love it this time of year where the sun's coming up and watch the sun come up and anybody who knows me
Yeah.
knows I take a lot of sunrise pictures, just a few. And but it is. But so sharks. I mean, where do you go do that? I mean, you just like I want to go swim with the sharks. And is there? I imagine there's a place down there where you can do that.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of places that do it. It's kind of the same as like taking a safari, but in the
Okay.
ocean.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
I
so
think that
you have a cage, you're in there and they can't bite you.
that would be. I would do that as long as there was a cage. I would either that I want them well fed. So,
Yeah. Yep.
but no, that's cool. So, and South Africa does really look interesting. I mean, like any area,
Hmm.
there's always something every area. So, I just,
Right.
I just, like I talked, I think earlier, Italy wasn't like I thought it would be either. It was definitely better than I thought it
Yeah.
would be. And I
Yep.
imagine where you're at too in Belgium. I mean, so where you're at, what would be some things you would suggest where you live? What are some things that people come to see?
So I'm actually in kind of an industrial city,
Oh yeah,
sort of
okay,
next to the French, yeah, to the French border. So I'm in Kortrijk,
okay,
um, and there are a couple of historical things. So like we've got some towers on the river that have
okay.
been here since the 1100s, a couple of churches that are old.
Wow.
But really, the place you want to go in Belgium
Okay.
is Bruges.
Boosh? What is that?
Bruges.
Rouge. Okay, what is
You know,
that?
it's there was a movie about it with Colin Farrell,
Okay,
in
okay,
Bruges. I
okay,
think that's where everybody knows it from.
okay,
But it's basically an old port city that is about 25 miles actually from the port. So it's on the river that went
okay,
out to the port. And it's been a historical center for hundreds, almost 1,000 years now, and
wow.
it's beautiful. There's so much history there.
Would love that.
Lots to see. hmm You can take carriage rides. They do a lot of
Oh, I
cultural
love,
things.
definitely love that.
Yep.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Okay, so how does Cheryl and I come over there? When you're coming, I mean, so do you fly out, or do you fly out of Cheyenne, or where do you fly out of when you're in Wyoming to go over to where you're at? It's probably a long flight, I would
Yeah.
guess too.
We usually fly out of Billings actually, because when
Oh,
we
Billings.
visit
Okay,
to Cody, not to Laramie.
okay,
It's
okay.
it's the closest international airport.
Good.
International.
Okay, okay. I've
Yep.
never been to Billings.
Yeah.
Billings must
So,
be a pretty good sized city then.
oh boy, I don't know what the population is, but it's not that. It's much smaller than like Fort Collins,
Really?
um,
Okay, okay.
in Colorado. Yeah,
That tells
but
me a lot.
it's kind of the only big city.
So
It's
that's
kind
why
of the
they
only
have
big
those.
city in that
Why
area.
they have an airport at the international. That makes sense. Okay. Because we
Yep.
always fly
But
to Denver.
mostly you connect.
Okay.
Right. Right. And Denver is about a 7.5 hour drive to Cody.
Not that
So
far. Okay. When you don't go that way. Okay.
yeah. Yep.
So that'd be about like us. I mean, we're not even quite that far. So, but that's
Right.
the nearest international one for us. So, okay.
hmm
So when then you go from there to Chicago then, or how do you go? How do you get a lot of connecting flights?
Yeah, usually. So usually you connect in either Chicago or Minneapolis, depending
Oh,
on the carrier.
okay.
And then I think you either go direct to Brussels. Sometimes you have to fly through London, um,
Okay.
just depending on the carrier. But
Sure,
yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, because when we went over to Italy last year, it was Denver to Munich and then to Naples, and then on the way back it was Frankfurt on the way back to Denver. So, um, very
yeah,
interesting. But no, that and I still I'm ready to go again somewhere. I'm ready to go someplace. I just Nebraska's good, and I'm always glad to be back in Nebraska. I like the
right.
vibe here, but kind of like cities. I like going to cities, but I'm really glad to be home too, very much. So,
Yes,
um, so what is
I
next?
think
I mean, what
that's
what's that? You're gonna
sorry.
say?
I think that's part of the beauty of travel too, is that it makes home feel more homey, right? You want to come back. It's not
Yeah,
something that you have to do.
yep.
Yep.
No, and I really like to leave Nebraska in the winter. I could definitely not be here
Mm,
during the winter. So, although at the end of the day with the hail, I
that's
mean, it's time to leave then too. But every place has that kind of thing. So, I mean, it just.
yep.
So where are some places that you would like to travel next?
Besides South Africa, I think we're going to probably stay close to home because,
Okay.
we're in Europe, it's easy. So I
Yeah,
think probably something like Spain, Portugal, I haven't been to yet. Maybe back to Greece, been to Greece, but I have a couple of other
I've heard
things I
good
want to
things all
see
about
there.
all those places. Yeah. So where
Yep.
you're at, do you have
Yep.
like in Italy with the train network? Do you have a lot of where you can ride trains where you're at?
Yeah. So in Belgium, the trains are not as like on time as you would think of.
Oh,
A
really?
lot of
Okay.
people in Belgium
Okay. Like,
complain about the trains.
okay. So it sounds like the United States
But
then. Okay.
yeah, but they're better than the ones in the States. I
Okay,
actually
that's
can
good.
walk
That's
five
very good.
minutes down the road. Yeah, catch a train, be in Brussels in, an hour. So
It's not
it's pretty easy to get around in Flanders. The thing with
okay.
Belgium is that it's three separate regions that have their own
Really,
government.
I
Yeah,
did
so
not
you have the
realize that.
Dutch speaking. Yeah, you have Dutch speaking Flanders, and you have French
Right.
speaking Wallonia, and then you have the German speaking part that's kind of near Germany. But then you also have
Wow.
Brussels, which is its own region.
I
Yeah.
definitely did not
So
realize
the
that.
the trains don't go between very much.
Oh,
So in order for me to get, just like 45 minutes down the road into Wallonia, I would have to go all the way to Brussels and then back that way on a train. So,
wow.
mhm.
That's interesting that they don't. I did not realize. That's one reason why if you don't travel, you don't know that kind of thing. I guess so. Um, well, that's one thing in Italy. We figured out the trains was definitely the way to go. I mean
Yeah.
it was so reasonable too. Worst part about that, and
Oh
I've said
yeah,
this,
I love the trains.
yeah, they just tormented us with accordion music on the trains, but they did that a lot in Italy. They always wanted a euro. You know, they come right by the table until you give them a euro, and it's like I told my wife, it's like never thought I'd be tormented with accordion music. I mean, they were good, but it's just like okay, enough of it. Get right away from our table, or where it was fun actually on the trains where they, it was very upbeat,
Hmm.
but it was a different vibe than the United States. You would never find that on a United States train. So very, very much. So are you coming back to
No.
the United States this year, or
Yeah, we have a wedding that we have to go to in Maine.
okay.
So
Oh,
we're gonna be
Maine?
there for a
Wow,
little bit. Yeah.
that'll
Yep.
be
I've
nice.
actually never been.
Me
So
either, but I hear
it'll be
such good
good.
things about it. It looks so
Yeah.
beautiful. No,
Yep.
that
So
more
we'll be there
travel. That's
for
always
a few days.
well. At least it
Yep.
gets you. That, and I hear that this is the time. This going into fall is when Maine is really nice. I hear it gets really nice after the
Yep.
budding season and the bug. I don't know. They tell me to wait until later, in the season. So, what is something that you have that you would
Yep.
really like to do that you haven't done?
Oh boy, something that I would like to do that I haven't done. I've always wanted to go skydiving, honestly,
Me too.
and I just haven't.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
intimidating. Like,
skydiving and yeah, sorry, skydiving and driving the Nuremberg ring. That's something close to.
wow, that would be cool.
Hmm.
I mean, that sounds like I would like to do that too. But no, my wife's
Yeah.
like, why would anybody with the skydiving? She's like, why would anybody want to jump out of a perfectly good plane? No, she's always like, I'll be on the ground waiting with a glass of wine for you. And it's like, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, what a thrill. I mean, gosh, I can't imagine
Hmm.
and she's like, what if the parachute doesn't open? It's like, well, I guess what a way to go. I mean, they're usually pretty
Yep.
careful.
Yep.
I mean, and I told her, I said,
Oh,
what if you're in
definitely.
an accident on the freeway or something like that too? There's always risks. So you just
Always
gotta
risk. Yep.
just calculate the risk. Just make sure that make sure they pack the parachute perfectly and everything else. No, I figure it's their life
Yep.
too because usually people jump with you.
Yeah.
So
Right.
anyway, how I mean, people can get a hold of you with your coaching. Just we'll kind of reiterate that. We'll actually share the show notes too. But if people wanted to
Okay.
work with you right now, how would they get a hold of you today?
Yeah, I'm really active on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn at Inner Evolution
Okay.
Coaching.
Okay.
I also have a website,
Okay.
www.innerevolutioncoach.com. And I have a WhatsApp, that I can give out to people or
Perfect.
whatever.
Perfect.
I'm available on all of anywhere that I've
All the
Instagram and Facebook.
okay.
Yep.
Find you on those. Okay.
All the
Okay.
social
That's
medias.
awesome. No, that's great. That's today's world. That's what makes it so nice that people, one
Yep.
way or the other, can get a hold of you. So, well, we'll make sure we
Exactly.
share all of that. So, but Liz,
Awesome.
I guess unless you have something else you'd like to share, I'll end the podcast right there. Thank you for
Okay.
being my guest. I look
Thank you
forward to
for having
watching your
me.
journey on this. This is you're cutting edge. You'd be really cutting edge in the United States, I think. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Although, like I said the other night, that was on CBS News. They talked about this. So, if it's getting
Yep.
mainstream on the news like that, it is definitely, the stigma is definitely going away. And I think
Right.
with the younger generation, it definitely is. So, but
Yeah.
but no, I look forward to keeping in touch. When you get your
Yeah.
podcast or when you write your book or whatever it is, or before then, maybe we'll have a follow up and see how things are going. And
Yeah.
thank you again for being on the podcast. And you take care.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really great.
Thank you. So have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks.